We're going to go all the way over to Manila and we're going to welcome Claire to our stage, but also Selena. So Selena is based in the UK and has had lots of conversations with Claire over the last week or so. And we're going to let them have a conversation about collaboration. So Claire and Selena, over to the two of you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah. Hi, Claire. Can you hear me?
Oh, good.
Brilliant. It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, just for everyone else, we met when I was part of a consulting team supporting you and your team developing a sustainable business strategy for the Oyu Tolgoi copper mine in Mongolia. However, I know your experience spans multiple sectors, including some time with the UN and international development roles in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Tanzania, and now at ADB based in Manila. So I think to start with, it would be great if you could give us an overview of your experience and story, and then we can jump into a few questions.
Yeah, no, thanks, Selena. Look, and hearing everyone speak today, I just wanted to say thanks for having me and helping contribute to the conversation. I've learnt a lot, and hope I can add to what others have said today. So yeah, I'm at the Asian Development Bank now. I joined in January, and really it sort of brings together the many aspects of my career that you touched on. My focus has been predominantly in mining in Australia, Mongolia, and other places, as you've touched on. But really, what I am aiming to do here at Asian Development Bank is to establish their portfolio in critical minerals. So the World Bank, IFC, they're already EBRD. There are many multilateral development banks already working in mining and supporting mining, but the Asian Development Bank has been in the camp of, oh, it's too risky, it's too scary. So I've come to ADB to help build that portfolio. But prior to that, as you mentioned, I was at Oyu Tolgoi, and my role was the general manager of strategy. And we worked really well together, Selena. Thanks for your help there to establish this very complex strategy focusing on sustainable mining. So I won't talk too much more about myself. Maybe we can just jump into the
Let's
conversation.
jump in, but thank you. That's a great introduction, and a challenging and interesting role that you're now in as well. A change, but very, very valuable. Um, you and I have talked previously about the challenges of both internal collaborations within companies, as well as those kind of critical external collaborations, such as, well, joint ventures, particularly in mining. So I think it'd be really great if we could explore a bit about your experience at OT, which is obviously a joint venture between Rio Tinto and the Mongolian government, and your current role at ADB. So first question from me is, if you were advising anyone setting up a new mining JV today, what would be your top three pieces of advice for ensuring strong collaboration between partners?
Yeah, very thought-provoking question. I think first and foremost is the partnerships need to be equitable, and that equity needs to be both on paper but also perception. So I think I'm working on a project at the moment, which it's publicly available information, but there's a joint venture between Barrick, a Canadian mining company, and the government of Pakistan for an exciting potential project in Pakistan. And one of the things I really like about this joint venture structure is how it is very equitable. It's 50%, Barrick is bringing the technical knowledge, knows how to build a mine, knows how to get the copper to the port. But it's 50% government of Pakistan, both the state-owned enterprise as well as the government of Baluchistan, the province of which the operation is on. So I think it's a really great example of a partnership in its early stages that is being established equitably. I think another example of that comes to mind, and Kambata, you can challenge me on this, but I a couple of years ago went to the NAMDEB operation in Namibia, and it is also, it's a well-established joint venture between De Beers and the Republic of Namibia, and it is also a 50-50 joint venture. I think it's also a good example and well-functioning joint venture. So that's one element, is equity. I think the other element of collaboration in mining projects is that the collaboration is so multifaceted, and we've seen all the conversation today. There's so many different groups that you need to collaborate with. So from a mining perspective, I'm sure we can all appreciate the different collaborations, from communities to suppliers to employees. The examples that came up today from Zach, there's those two examples are very confronting: the massacre and then the assassination at Richards Bay. Those perhaps were examples of where the collaboration between the communities and the employees for the different examples had failed. And you can see the disastrous outcomes of poor collaboration. And I think the third element that I would sort of advise anyone sort of start setting up a joint venture is the importance of building trust. And that has come up in every conversation.
Yep.
And trust across cultures, which, has also come up a lot today. It takes time to build that trust, and it can be lost very quickly. So, taking the time to get to know whoever you're working with, from me personally, my view is that you can't invest enough in building that trust, and the relationships. It's really important.
Definitely, as we were listening this morning and everyone talking about the ability and the importance of listening, really listening authentically, I was thinking about our time at OT actually. I wondered if you had a reflection on this around the kind of stories that needed to be heard, the history that needed to be felt as you built that strategy going forward. And that was all part of sort of building a trust, both internally and externally. I don't know if that resonated the same for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the things that we did, which I think was really quite impactful, but at the very start of developing that strategy, was looking at the history. And OT it's really depending on changes in ownership, but you're looking at a very young organisation, but with so much history, and people who were in the room that had been there from the beginning when they were getting the samples out, doing the sampling, and honouring their and listening to history. I mean, it was so important, and personally I learned so much, which then helped inform how we then evolved and developed the strategy. So definitely that listening, it's so important.
100%. Thank you. Yeah. And I guess a lot of this is very easy to say and a lot of lessons learned, but every time you apply it, it's different, and getting it right is challenging. Can you share examples, and you've mentioned some already, but where mining projects have worked well or not so well, and some key reflections as to why, perhaps building on some of these themes?
Yeah, look, and I think OT is a good example of both, where it hasn't been a smooth process over the course of 10, 15 years. There has the project now is built and it's ramping up. It's a fantastic story, but not so long ago, the project was on hold. So it's gone from a great story to a not so great story to then a great story, and it's changed over time. So, and I think the reflection within Oyu Tolgoi at the time was very much a reflection of a loss of trust as to why things had that dip, and it took a lot of effort from very senior people within Rio Tinto, the joint venture partner, to work closely with the representatives from the government of Mongolia to rebuild and re-earn that trust.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. Moving to your current role now as an investor in mining companies, how important is evidence of collaboration from an investor's perspective, and how do you even measure it?
Yeah, it's I suppose what an investor wants to make sure is that, you know, it's viable, and that it's going to make the return on investment. And unless you see strong partnerships, I think, you know, all mining projects of a significant scale will be done in partnership. That's you know, seems to be where the industry is heading. And so you need to see the partnerships are well structured. And so, you know, I think there's this element of due diligence and, you know, making sure contractually things are set up, but it's actually getting a feel on the ground and speaking to people and, you know, getting a view, are the partners' values aligned? Are their objectives aligned? You know, if one partner cares about net zero carbon emissions and the other doesn't, well, you're going to come unstuck, you know, on many things. So I think, you know, when I'm in this role, what I'm looking for is demonstration of that alignment, both on the ground and in conversations, and, you know, like looking for the soft signals, as well as what's actually documented in the contracts and paperwork.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And I guess understanding the cultures of both organizations and nations as well, all coming together. Again, a common theme to this morning, but very challenging to get that right.
Yes.
Yes. Brilliant. So just turning to perhaps internal, we've talked about here about external facing areas, but turning to your experience of leading teams in large organizations, particularly, I guess, mining organizations, what are the main causes, in your view, of sort of siloed teams and lack of collaboration within companies? And do you think that impacts their ability to then deliver optimal outcomes as organizations and within relationships externally?
Yeah, look, I think to maybe answer the second part of the question first, you know, I think without collaboration, any organization, no matter what you're trying to do, is never going to deliver as much as you could. So, you know, you know, there's that a saying: if you want to go fast, go alone, and if you want to go far, go together. And yeah, I mean, you can get good and quick outcomes without collaboration, but you can get much more sustainable, stronger impact outcomes through collaboration. That's what I firmly believe. But I think in organizations, there are two things which perhaps are often lacking, which create silos, you know, and these are not easy things to create. If they could be easily created, then they'd exist everywhere. I think one is people having the skills of collaboration, and I think also, to Kambata's point, is the skills of cross-cultural collaboration on top of that. So, you know, I would sort of say that personally, I'm a natural collaborator. I enjoy it, but I still seek opportunities to learn new skills to collaborate better. And then there are people who are not natural collaborators, and they probably need a little bit more of a helping hand in terms of the skills of collaboration. But you know, I think if everyone has that shared understanding of the benefits of collaboration, that investment in the muscle of collaborating is something that organisations could make more of. And I think the other element is incentives. And as I was listening to the talks today, Selena, I was reflecting that one of the things we was able to create at OU Torgo through the strategy was a shared set of objectives and measurable targets, which are essentially the incentives to help the organisation work together to achieve its common objectives. So I think, incentives, shared incentives across an organisation is something that's hard to do, but that will also help improve that the collaboration within an organisation.
Brilliant, thank you. And definitely hard to do and needs a will to do it because it can be a painful process,
Yes,
but
we
rewarding.
live.
Very good. I'm aware of time and wanted to make sure I leave enough to open up to the floor. Sarah, do we have any questions for Claire in the chat or anything you would like to ask?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, thank you so much, Claire, for
Yes,
coming
thank you.
and joining our motley little crew today to take part in responsible raw materials. We've got one question that's come in the chat, and then I'm going to segue straight into the panel session. So that is a heads up to all of our other lovely panelists. We're going to finish off today's or this session number one, with a quick whip around the room in terms of some of your key takeaways. But first, before we go there, Claire, you might have seen in the chat that question of the potential for in really complicated partnerships or in those partnerships, that question of corruption. Do you have anything to say to that?
Um, Look, I think there is a corruption risk in any jurisdiction of where you work. I suppose it's really, the organisations I've worked for are global multinational organisations where the training and the systems are very stringent in terms of minimising the likelihood of corruption. So, from my experience, I personally haven't been exposed to corruption, but I think it's a something that needs to be considered for any organisation wanting to work in collaboration and partnerships is making sure that it's open, transparent. There isn't untoward gain that can be achieved from working across the different members of partnerships. Bit of that's someone's PhD conversation there, I think.
Yeah, and I think just to that as well, I've been doing lots of work recently where people talk about risk appetite, not necessarily for corruption, but knowing, especially where there's that grey zone, what does that look like? Because it might be slightly different between different cultures, and having a mechanism or the ability to discuss it is really important. Is that fair?
Yeah, and look, I mean, what I observe in organisations, multinational organisations, is very all organisations will have anonymous phone calls that you can make to report any potential corruption issues. And so, yes, having that ability for there's someone to make a complaint or share an observation is really, really important.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thank you very, very much for that, Claire. So everyone, if I can invite you to please put your hands together for the wonderful Claire. Thank you very much. Excellent.